So Carl Jung, the celebrated psychologist from the West, is known to have said that if out of all the patients who came to me, the mentally ill patients, not even one believed. And he's really cracked the puzzle of our uh, current age problems, because for people who don't believe that there's something beyond that has their back, that is somehow going to make things work, life actually becomes so difficult. If we live thinking that our own limited means are all we have to navigate us through life, the amount of anxiety and feeling overwhelmed is unimaginable, because there are so many problems of life to which we can't really see any solution at all. So, we begin with a concept we visited many times. We'll go over it very quickly so that people are new to the concept, have the basis of that for the further talk. So, the concept is of Kalyan shraddha. It's something beautiful that Sri Aurobindo talks about. He says that in the psychic being, the very nature of the presence there is faith, faith in the goodness of life, what he calls Kalyan shraddha. So if we were to imagine this giant who's 10,000 floors tall, floors of a building, because we are so tiny, we are standing at the foot of the giant, we'll only see a big black wall, his black shoe, because his shoe also will be too big for us to see him. So we are right in front of the giant, but because of the difference in the dimensions, we can't see him. If he sees us playing on a beach, and because of his height, he can see the whole Bombay city, and a tsunami is coming close to Bombay, assuming that this intelligence that Jung was referring to is all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful, he will pick us up to put us in a safe place. But because of the dimensions, again, we can't see his hand that's holding us and carrying us. So we'll get anxious. Where am I being taken? I want to play on the beach with my friends, but where am I being carried? And that time we have a choice of going where we are being taken, kicking and screaming, or walking the sunlit path of Kalyan Shraddha, of surrender. So if the giant is holding you and you're looking down at a landscape, this will be what you see. But from the giant's perspective, this will be what he will see. Because he can see the whole and you can see only the part, to you the part doesn't make sense. It seems wrong. But from the larger intelligence perspective, it makes perfect sense. So let's go ahead. Toll says, even within the seemingly most unacceptable and painful situation is concealed a deeper good. And within every disaster is contained the seed of grace. Throughout history, there have been women and men who, in the face of great loss, illness, imprisonment, or pending death, accepted the seemingly unacceptable, and thus found the peace that passeth all understanding. Accepting the unacceptable is the greatest source of grace in this world. Even within the seemingly most unacceptable and painful situation is concealed a deeper good. Sri Aurobindo writes this in Savitri, whether it seem good or evil to men's eyes, only for good the secret will can work. And within every disaster is contained the seed of grace. It sows grace that's going to flower through the disaster. Throughout history, there have been women and men who, in the face of great loss, illness, imprisonment, or impending death, accepted the seemingly unacceptable. What seems unacceptable to my perspective, if I make a leap of faith and say that from the giant's perspective, it's sowing seeds of grace, I accept. And thus found the peace that passeth all understanding. Acceptance of the unacceptable is the greatest source of grace in this world. This is a beautiful line because it implies that with our minds we cannot accept the unacceptable. It's only an illumined moment of grace that gives us the gift of accepting what to the mind is unacceptable. As usual, if you have any questions, any comments, put it on the chat box. This is words of the mother. A sadhak told the mother, I am sorry for my behavior yesterday. May I apologize for it? I wish I could be your true servant. I consider you already a true servant, mother answers, but I want you to also become a true child so that you may have the full joy of it with my love and blessings. Sadhak, after all, my whole life is consecrated to you. Shall I remain very calm without bothering you about what happens to me? Yeah, so he's asking that you know my life, it's offered to you. Whatever happens, should I bring it to your attention or should I just remain calm knowing that you'll take care? Mother replies, that's very good. But if you were add to this the idea that I know you and love you better than you yourself do. I know better than you what is good for you. Then that would be perfect. The mother is the giant, the metaphorical giant, and she's saying, because I can see more, I know more, And because of knowing more, I'm capable of more love. So if you always remained calm without bothering, knowing that I love you better than you know how to love yourself, and I know better than you what is good for you, then that would be perfect. So, based on Kalyan Shraddha, we come to the concept of letting the light carry us. Let the light carry you. Sri Aurobindo says there's one way of living, trying to do everything with my own efforts, getting hyper, getting hassled, being in a hurry, getting frustrated that this isn't going the way I wanted, that isn't going the way I wanted. And there's another way of just stepping back, opening to the light, and letting the light do through you. And the light cannot do through you if you're noisy and anxious. Again, as Toll says, those only were they saved who did not want to be saved. You're completely saved when you no longer really want to even be saved. Just today, I was at a lunch and I heard this very touching story by a lady. She is not a devotee of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, but she has her own guru she has great faith in. So she was diagnosed as having ovarian cancer and was told that you may live 6 months to a year. You'll have to come under the knife and we'll remove as many organs or whatever as I can. And the lady said, I don't know what grace it was. I didn't shed one tear. I didn't lose one wink of sleep over it. I was just completely quiet. And I was so surrendered to my guru that the only thought in my head was, you've only given me this cancer, you look after it. And her guru was in her body and she didn't even want to call him. But her husband secretly called him and he said, tell her to go ahead with the surgery, but she'll be completely fine. So she went, they opened her up, and 6 doctors had told her it looks like a lethal ovarian cancer. But she said, I'm quoting her words, that she didn't lose one wink of sleep over it and she didn't shed one tear. There was so much grace that she was just so surrendered. And when a portion, what to determine whether it's cancer, you remove a portion of it and then you puncture it and test it out. So her surgeon told her that till she took out the mass and put it in the bag, she was 100% sure it was very malignant. But somehow when they did the test, it turned out to be just a chocolate cyst. The point is that I can't help thinking that because this lady had that kind of faith, I mean, to actually not lose a wink of sleep, not shed one tear when you're told you have the most lethal of all cancers, ovarian, we know, and to have so much faith that you don't even want to make a call to your guru, your husband does it secretly, and you're just fine at the end of it. So it goes to really prove that the only protection we ever have is consciousness. If our consciousness is in place, nothing can touch us. We know this story that once a person was going to war and he came and took the mother's blessing, saying that, I don't know whether I'll see you again or not. And she said, what rubbish. With my name on your lips, you can go into the mouth of death and nobody will touch one hair on your head. Our problem is at the slightest things that go wrong or threaten to go wrong, we lose touch with our core. We give in to doubt, fear. And Mother says there's nothing that takes you out of my protection as much as doubt and fear. However much I want to protect you, if you keep allowing doubt and fear to come in, you are keeping me out. Sri Aurobindo's words, if one wanted the divine himself would take up the purifying of the heart and develop the sadhana and give the necessary experiences. I meant to say that it can and does happen in that way if one has trust and confidence in the divine and the will to surrender. For such a taking up involves one's putting oneself in the hands of the divine rather than trusting to one's own efforts alone. And it implies one's putting one's faith, one's trust and confidence in the divine and a progressive self-giving. It is in fact the principle of sadhana that I myself followed, and it is the central part of the yoga as I envisage it. It is, I suppose, what Ramakrishna meant by the method of the baby cat in his image. So you know, that's a famous thing of Ramakrishna. He says, a baby monkey clings to the mother monkey and is carried. That's one way. The baby kitten just gives itself to the mouth of the mother and the mother carries it in its mouth. But all cannot follow that at once. It takes time for them to arrive at it. It grows most when the mind and vital fall quiet. So Sri Aurobindo says this, that personal effort is necessary till you're identified with the divine. When the mind falls silent, you identify with the awareness in which thoughts arise. Or an intense movement of love makes the bhakta one with the deity. At that moment, all effort drops from you like a worn-out robe. You become another person. What was impossible for you becomes not only possible but indispensable. You cannot do otherwise. You must be attentive, silent, must wait the inner inspiration, not do anything from external reactions. You must not be moved by the light that comes from above. Constantly, regularly, must act only under the inspiration of that light, nothing else. Never to think, never to question, never to ask, should I do this or should I do that? But of course, Sri Aurobindo is saying this is possible only when you reach that identification, when personal effort drops. Till then, of course, personal effort is indispensable. Now, I got rather Bijal found for us this bit, which is an excerpt from Sri Aurobindo's life, where he really lived this. In the midst of this turmoil, of his turmoil of whatever he was doing for the nation, we all know that, Sri Aurobindo met in Baroda a Maharashtrian yogi called Vishnu Bhaskar Lele. Lele asked Sri Aurobindo to remain in seclusion for 3 days. He told him to sit in meditation and not to think. He would find that thoughts were not his own but came from outside and should be thrown away. Sri Aurobindo describes his experience. In a moment, my mind became silent, like windless air on a high mountain summit. And then I saw one thought, and then another coming in a concrete way from outside. I flung them away before they could enter and take hold of the brain. And in 3 days, I was free. He had a complete silent mind, what had taken the Buddha 10 years to find that Nibbanic silence. Sri Aurobindo did in 3 days. In 3 days, Sri Aurobindo had achieved the silent mind, which deepened into the experience of the silent Brahman consciousness. But there was a problem. Sri Aurobindo had to address a national meeting after 3 days. His mind had become calm and blank. How was he to give a speech? Lele, so he of course went to Lele that how do I talk? I don't have a single thought. Lele told him that it did not matter. He had only to bow to the audience as Narayan, and everything would be all right. As usual, Sri Aurobindo followed the directions without questioning, and he found that something else spoke through him. And thus it was for the rest of his life. Everything was done from the silent Brahma consciousness, writing, speaking, or the most intense political activity. So here is an example from his life, how he lived this. The one lesson we need to learn is utter dependence on God, upon God. Everything else will follow. We must learn to turn to God for every little thing we need, until one blessed day we find that we need nothing. Our one and only need is God. When this happens, all that we need is provided for naturally, spontaneously, always at the right time. Before we need a thing, it is already there. Everything comes to pass at the right time in the right way. When one moves through life like a king. When a king moves out, everything is prepared for him in advance. He does not have to ask for anything. All his needs are anticipated and provided for. So, what he's saying is that when we reach that one moment in time, when our one fundamental need is God, when we don't need anything but God, then we don't have to ask for anything. Whatever we need is brought to us, is dropped into our lap. This is observations of Kapali Shastri, who was a celebrated disciple of the Mother. Believe me that my faith and devotion are not ideal and complete. Still, the very name Mother has done me a lot which would be impossible for many births to achieve. Now, Kapali Shastri was somebody who had done a lot of tapasya, tried many methods, had done a lot of meditation. But when Mother says that be a child and the way will be the simplest, somebody, a great yogi like Kapali Shastri, he said, the very name Mother has done me a lot which would be impossible for many births to achieve. Every week is opening fresh vistas. I have known of no yoga which lives in a trice, so easily. The human creature from the Maya to the higher altitudes of the Divine Mother. I have only one thought, and that is the Mother. Grace from her flows like light from the sun. Why should I not ask her and tell her what I wanted? When I can pray to God for the removal of moral imperfections, why should I not pray for the removal of certain troubles, etc.? Of course, I must take whatever answer comes. The very spirit of prayer or surrender is, I will be done. So he's saying that when I want something, of course I'll tell the Mother, but I don't insist on it. I say that I want this, but I probably want it in my ignorance. If I get it, you know it's good for me. If I don't get it, in your wisdom, you know that's good for me. The very spirit of prayer or surrender is thy will be done. Our problem is we pray, and when we don't get our prayers, we start throwing tantrums. Mother said in the previous thing I read out that also know that I love you more than you love yourself, and I know what's good for you more than what you know. If my child asks me for glittering, colored, attractive looking poison, I'm not going to give it to him. She further says, na, if I were to pander to your ego, I'd be a traitor to your soul, and I cannot be a traitor to your soul. The way is long and hard, but since one does not walk alone in this yoga, since one learns in his own time to feel the presence, the accompanying light of the Mother's grace on the path, no anxiety or fear or failure is possible. What is wanted is strength. She alone can give it, and she certainly does as we grow, for she herself hastens up our growth. These are words of Eckhart Tolle again. Your acceptance of what is takes you to a deeper level where your inner state as well as your sense of self no longer depend on the mind's judgments of good or bad. When you say yes, so when you accept what is, when you no longer argue with what is, that acceptance takes you to a deeper level where your inner state as well as your sense of self no longer depend on the mind's judgments of good or bad. Right now, my whole happiness depends on my thoughts, isn't it? If I have a thought which predicts a good future or reminisces a good past, I'm happy. If I have a thought which predicts a bad future, anticipates something bad, or reminisces a bad memory, I'm unhappy. But when you really accept what is, understanding that everything that comes into my life comes through the agency of this giant intelligence, this mother who in our story was the giant 10,000 floors high building, that tall a giant, who's moving everyone because she has that much sight, that much love, that much wisdom. So if I really accept that everything that comes into my life comes to me from her, and as she says, to remember these two things, I love you more than you love yourself, and I know for you more than you what's good for you. So in her love and her wisdom, whatever and once we've turned to her, Mother says so beautifully that even if you felt one moment of true love for me, and if we are here, every one of us have felt that, or we wouldn't be spending Saturday evening on something that's not typically fun. So every one of us has felt a moment of love for her. And she said, if you felt even one moment of true love for me, I've put a golden chain around your heart, and I consider you my responsibility for lifetimes to come. So if that is her promise to us, it's so stupid of us to, littlest thing that goes wrong, we tighten, we start feeling threatened, we start worrying, we start getting anxious. But how beautiful if we can just keep the ideal of the story I told you, that lady facing a calamity like ovarian cancer and death. And all she says is, my guru is there. I have told you this story some Savitri classes back. There was a man who was very ill. He went to his doctor and told his doctor that I know I'm terminally ill and I know that maybe I'll move on. But doctor, what waits for me on the other side? If only I could know, I wouldn't be so fearful. And the doctor said, do you hear the scratching and sounds on my door? So the man said, yes. So he said, just watch. So he opened the door and the doctor's pet dog leapt all over him and licked him. He said, my pet dog usually never comes to the clinic. Maybe the house was adjoining the clinic, but he got to this space and when the door opened, he's not afraid. He just knows his master is on the other side. So he says, that's all you need to know. You don't need to know what's on the other side of life and death. You should just know that your master is waiting for you on the other side. Now, not just about death in every unknown situation. And frankly, it's unknown that scares us, right? I have some kind of illness, mild or whatever. What scares me is I don't know where it'll go, how long it'll take to heal, what will happen. But I don't need to know. That's what the lady in the story was all about. She just knew my master is waiting on the door of this side or that side, but wherever I go, my master is waiting, just like the dog, fearlessly leaping in through any door that opens because I know my master is waiting on the other side. So if I really live this faith, uh, and many of us know this intellectually, but we are not able to live it when the rubber hits the road. When things go wrong, we are not really able to draw on this faith. Even if I know it, I'll say, yeah, I know, maybe I'll be fine in the end, but I'm suffering so much in the process. What's the point? I'm sure many of you have felt like that. But the point is, I suffer because I don't have faith. What did Kalyan say? Of all the patients who came to me, not even one believed. If they had believed, of course, this is bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever. But to some extent, all of us are mentally unhealthy, right? When we compulsively worry, when we stress. And faith is the most powerful antidepressive medicine. If you draw on this faith inside you, depression vanishes in moments. But it's when we are not willing to draw on this faith inside us, when we find reasons to negate God and his workings. And beautifully in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo writes about this resistance. This enemy lodged in the human breast, man must find and dislodge or miss his higher faith. So this enemy lodged in our brain, in our depths, is that compulsion that will tell us all these kind of negative things. Yeah, I know she'll save me, but I'm suffering so much in the process. What kind of mother is she if she's making me suffer so much? All that is the voice of the enemy lodged in the human breast. But if one human being, if one of my species has it in her, and she's not some Mahayogi, she's just an ordinary person like you and me. If one of my species has the capacity to look into the eyes of possible malignant cancer and death, and not lose a wink of sleep over it, not shed a tear, then as a capacity, I have it too. Whatever I'm facing, it can't be as big as what she faced then. And if I choose to draw on faith and smile, whatever it is, she has my back. She's going to take me through it. I'll just keep putting my best foot forward. And I know I'll go to a wonderful place eventually. The problem comes when I'm stubborn, when I want to direct God, that if you love me, you take me where I want to go. Only then I trust you. Well, then there'll be a whole lot of suffering till I come to the real trust that is. So, Toll says, your acceptance of what is takes you to a deeper level where your inner state as well as your sense of self no longer depend on the mind's judgments of good or bad. When you say yes to the isness of life, when you accept this moment as it is, you can feel a sense of spaciousness within you that is deeply peaceful. On the surface, you may still be happy when it's sunny and not so happy when it's rainy. You may be happy at winning $1 million and unhappy at losing all your possessions. Neither happiness nor unhappiness, however, go all that deep anymore. So when you're in complete acceptance of what is, neither do happy things make you so happy that you lose balance, nor do unhappy things make you lose balance. They are ripples on the surface of your being. The background peace within you remains undisturbed, regardless of the nature of the outside condition. So when you accept things as they are without mental judgment, you tune into the peace of your inner being, which remains undisturbed, regardless of the nature of the outside condition. The yes to what is reveals a dimension of depth within you that is dependent neither on external conditions nor on internal conditions of constantly fluctuating thoughts and emotions. Now we see this in the life of our Guru. We all know about Siddhi Day, 24th November, when Krishna consciousness descended into Sri Aurobindo, not going into details of that, but it was a big event. Lots of people experienced fascinating things that day at the ashram. And in conversation with the mother, mother told him, Krishna's descended into your physical body. And Sri Aurobindo, the mountain of peace that he was, very nonchalantly said, yes, now let's see what happens. There was no exhilaration, no wow. That was the kind of samta he had. We get one little jot of spiritual experience, we get so exhilarated, our ego feels so kicked about it. Here, there's first time in the history of humanity that Krishna consciousness descended into a human body. And what was the magnificent Adhar of that consciousness? A being who just says very calmly, yes, now let's see what happens, nothing else. So that's the role model for us, not to get overexcited when things go well, because then we'll get attached to it. And then when they don't maintain that good pace, we'll be as unhappy. Surrender becomes so much easier when you realize the fleeting nature of all experiences and that the world cannot give you anything of lasting value. You then continue to meet people, to be involved in experiences and activities, but without the wants and fears of the egoic self. So surrender makes it so much easier to realize that all experiences are nature, are last time stop, and nature, impermanent, it's fleeting. The world cannot give you anything of lasting value. Therefore, in the earlier screen share we read, if you reach a point where all you want is God, because you know that's the only wealth there is in the world, then you roam around in the world like a king. Whatever you need comes to you. You then continue to meet people, to be involved in experiences and activities, but without the wants and fears of the egoic self. That is to say, you no longer demand that a situation, person, place, or event should satisfy you or make you happy. Its passing an imperfect nature is allowed to be. So somebody tells me, Anahita, you're an idiot. I'm not ruffled. That's that person's passing impermanent nature. It's going to change. Tomorrow, the person may come and tell me you're adorable. That will also change. That is to say, you no longer demand that a situation, person, place, or event should satisfy you or make you happy. Its passing and imperfect nature is allowed to be. And the miracle is that when you're no longer placing an impossible demand on it, every situation, person, place, or event becomes not only satisfying, but also more harmonious, more peaceful. So beautiful, nothing to explain in this. But when I'm not placing that impossible demand on people, make me happy, satisfy me, then everything becomes satisfying, harmonious, and peaceful. Okay, so Bijal, we haven't put in the Savitri slide. There's no Savitri. Okay, so let me just get my book. We'll add it to the PDF. I'll read it out from there. Hold on.
Miss, it's there on slide number 7, Savitri.
Slide number 7. Okay.
Sorry, 8, my bad.
No problem. Okay. So this is page 15 in Savitri. These are lines on the Divine Mother. A wide self-giving was her native act, a magnanimity as of sea or sky, enveloped with its greatness all that came, and gave a sense as of a greatened world. So the very fabric of the mother in her love was self-giving. She says for us to give ourselves to the divine, but the most beautiful quality of the mother was she totally gave herself. If we read her life, we see how to run the ashram, she gave down to her jewelry, everything. Earlier days that she didn't even have a proper room to rest in. She just made peace with whatever was given to her till some of the disciples constructed a room for her to rest in. She never asked for anything for herself. A wide self-giving was her native act, a magnanimity as of sea or sky, enveloped with its greatness all that came. And we experience this greatness every time we are in Pondicherry. Because there's an atmosphere there, isn't it, which we all experience, enveloped with its greatness, all that came, and gave a sense as of a greatened world. And we don't need to go to Pondicherry, though it definitely helps. Sitting right here in our house, when we connect with her, the whole world, everything feels greatened. Her kindly care was a sweet, temperate sun. The tropical sun is harsh, it's very hot. But the temperate sun is just enough warmth to make you feel good. So her kindly care was a sweet, temperate sun. Her high passion, a blue heaven's equipoise. So normally we associate passion with turbulence, excitement, but mother's passion was a blue heaven's equipoise. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered rest in a haven of safety and splendid, soft repose. One could drink life back in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and bring joy in her warmth and colors rule. So these beautiful lines where, when Carl Jung said that of all that came to me, not even one believed, they were people who were hunted by their anxieties and the demons of their thoughts. But when we are lucky enough to discover Mother, to discover grace, then we don't need to feel hunted anymore. We don't have to keep flying though our wings are tired. We can be carried by light. We can let the light do through us. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered rest in a haven of safety and splendid, soft repose. One could drink life back in streams of honey fire, fire that's sweet, honey fire. Fire represents passion. So we don't get, we normally we live so resignedly, so stoically, our lives bad, lives like that. But when we discover her, we drink life back in streams of honey fire. We recover the lost habit of happiness because the way we live, our conditioning makes it a habit to be unhappy all the time. But with Mother, we recover the lost habit of happiness. Feel her bright nature's glorious atmosphere, ambiance, and preen joy. Preen is like we preen before a mirror, right? We adopt a position of joy. And preen joy in her warmth and colors rule. Her rule is a rule of warmth and joy and color. A deep of compassion, a depth of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, a quiet place of refuge the mother is. Her inward help unbarred a gate in heaven. Heaven is not a place outside us. Heaven is a state of mind full of joy, hope, peace. And when we turn to her, she helps us from within to find that heaven inside us. And I'm sure every one of us has experienced this at one point or the other. We are in a self-created hell mentally, and we turn to her, and her inward help unbars a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. The whole world could take refuge in her single heart. Now I'll be quiet. Just read this through on your own. If you like, read it again. So that's the last screen share I have for you today. Are there any questions, any comments, anything you'd like to share? Okay. If there's nothing, then let's conclude. So let's sit tall with your eyes shut and just put your right hand on your chest, left palm over it. Go behind your palms into what the mother calls the heart space or the space of the psychic being inside you. Bring the mother's image in your heart and just repeat this line: her inward help unbarred a gate in heaven. Her inward help unbarred a gate in heaven. And once on your own. And that heaven is the space of Kalyan shraddha within us. Faith in the goodness of life. Faith in the knowing that there's a meaning in every curve and line, that whether it seemed good or evil to men's eyes, only for good the secret will can work. Recollect the story of the lady who was told she could die of ovarian cancer, which was detected. But she didn't lose a wink of sleep or shed a tear because she had so much faith in her guru. And magic happened against all medical opinions. The cyst turned out to be benign. But for us, the slightest thing that goes wrong, we start losing faith. We start questioning, will I really be looked after? Will I have to suffer a lot? And it's actually the fear of the unknown that frightens us. For example, if we are ill, we don't know how much more ill we'll get, how long it'll last. And that worry makes us anxious. But we remember the story of the dog who just, when the door is opened, he enters an unknown room fearlessly, knowing his master is on the other side. If just like that, we can always remember that when I open the door to any unknown room metaphorically, my master is waiting for me on the other side. My master is the one supreme and comforting, all-powerful known in the midst of all the unknowns of life. And so I don't have to fear the unknown. So just see if I can actually feel a happy smile in my heart as that Kalyan shraddha arises in my heart this minute. And as we did in our yoga class this morning, there's a very powerful Surya mantra which we can use as a tool throughout the day. It's Om Mitraya Namah. Salutations to the invisible sun of grace, SUN, sun of grace, which flows invisibly through every curve and line of life. So whenever I'm feeling blah about life, whenever I'm feeling not so happy, the most powerful anti-anxiety tablet is this Kalyan Shraddha. And the way to swallow it is with this mantra. So let's try it now. Visualize the mother in your heart. As you breathe in, mentally articulate Om. As you breathe out, Mitraya Nama. Salutations to the great friend who permeates everything and controls everything to lead everything to its eventual good. Just 7 times more on your own, 7 breaths. Om on the inhalation, Mitraya Nama on the exhalation. With Mother or your highest reverences imaged in the heart. See what flows from the heart into the skin, changing the ambience inside. And then just these words from Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, which we just read, describing the mother. Her kindly care was a sweet, temperate sun. Her high passion, her blue heavens equipoise, as might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered rest in a haven of safety and splendid, soft repose. One could drink life back in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and gain joy in her warmth and colors rule, a deep of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, her inward health unbarred a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. The whole world would take refuge in a single heart. So you can open your eyes, and whenever through the day a blah feeling comes up, a dark atmosphere arises within, it's so wonderful to just draw on Om Mitraya Nama with Mother's image and use your breath. Your breath is a very powerful link between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. So if you link a mantra to your breath, it goes deep into your subconscious mind. So if you do this and you actually experience that one moment of calling her and her inward help unbars a gate in heaven, then we have access to this heaven so often and so easily. So if y'all would like to turn on your videos and say hello, I'd love to see you since I don't see you physically anymore. Hey, Tanu.
Miss.
Hi. Hi, Muna. Param, of course, I've been seeing Vaishali, Shailaja, and Daksha, Mansi, and all the rest of you. There'll be no Savitri class for the next 2 weeks. I'll be traveling. But it would be nice if you kept your commitment 5 to 6, either read Savitri or heard a previous recording, spent your time with Savitri these next 2 weeks that I won't be there. Okay, and every Savitri class, many of you thank me and I'm grateful. But Bijal, would you please turn on your video? If you can. If you can't, no problem. I think you should thank Bijal more than me because I put together the matter, but she arranges the PDF and all that. And sometimes because of my busy schedule, I'm not able to send it to her before 12:31. And in 1 hour, she just puts it all together. So I think she deserves the thank much more than me. So
Thank you, Bijal.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you.
Bijal.
Thank you, Vijay.
Most welcome, everyone.
All right. See all of you third Saturday from now. Bye.
Thank you, Miss.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.